Welcome you all for this afternoon session. Now I introduce our plenary speaker, Dr. Kalai Selvan Arumugan. He is currently attached to Malaysian Ministry of Education. He is in the education field for 20 years and conducted more than 100 talks and seminar workshops in the education field. And he is also expertise in curriculum and instructional designing. And he has received 10 awards from Malaysian Ministry of Education for best practices in teaching and learning. Sir, really we are very much pleased to have a supplementary speaker or two for this session. Welcome you, sir. Now we can proceed your sessions.
Okay, thank you to Dr. L. Mahalashmi and a very good afternoon to all of the participants. First of all, I would like to thank for the organizer to invite me as a speaker for today's session. Is it clear enough, my voice?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are
Okay.
audible. You are very much clear.
So today what I'm going to share with you all is about the education and inequality, okay, in the education system. Let me to share my slides first. Okay, is it visible?
Visible, sir. Visible.
Yes, okay. So my topic today will be on education and inequality in teaching and learning. Okay, so when we look at the modern world, in the current modern world, where we are saying that education is for everyone, but still some of the research are proving that there is some inequality in teaching and learning, especially inside the classroom. Okay, why we are saying such a way? Okay, because when you look at the discrimination inside the classroom teaching and learning, there are a lot of cases that is happening, not only in my country or your country, but it is a global problem, and it is a global issue where we can say that every single students, sometimes they are not getting what they should get. Okay, so this is my overview of the presentation. So I would like to let you know about the definition, size, dimension, links, persistence, and a few conclusions about what we are going to discuss today. Okay, education and inequality. Okay, when we look at the definition itself, it shows that the what are the things supposed the students gain is not given properly to the students. When now I'm not going to focus in any other aspects apart from education. I'm just focusing on education. So when you're looking at the education, why there is still inequality in the classroom teaching and learning, there are many factors. That is income, opportunity, like access life chances, political power or relationships, social, like class, race, gender, language. Our students might be not equally treated because of any of these factors, which I feel sometimes when the students' parents, okay, they don't have a proper income, they cannot support for the school's development, there it will happen where the child didn't get the equality in education. Or else, this will happen also because of the excess of life chances. Maybe they came from the rural area. Maybe they are not access to the current education. So, you know, that the current education, they need to engage with all these technologies. Just imagine they don't have the proper access to all these things, and how they are going to be equally treated in the classroom teaching and learning. Political, of course, all over the world it happened, where the power relationships, where some of the schools, it is under political control. So where that place also, it will happen, the inequality to the education. And perhaps the last one is social equality. When you come to the social, you have the different class. Still in the modern world, we are looking into this aspect. Race, okay, gender, gender victimized, where the girl students are not equally treated as a boys. Language, okay, many all over the country, they have their own language, and sometimes there is the emphasis of the second language, where when the students cannot equally catch up the first language, they are not treated equally. So all these aspects are the influences that happen in our current education system. Even we are saying that this is a modern world, this is a modern education, the access of education for everyone, but still this is happening globally. Okay, so what do we mean when we say inequality? We don't have the equality in education. Access to the education. For example, gender. Okay, this is the major part where everywhere this is happening, where sometimes the girls are badly treated. Okay, and then sometimes it happened because of the caste. Okay, where it is happening everywhere. So when we can say that this is happening, when we say that when we claim that this is happening, so the inputs and outcomes is not for that particular children, but the impact is for the nation. The impact is for the nation. Just imagine when the students, okay, when the particular students are very excellent, and it is not treated equally. There are some, I mean, like perhaps we can say it is not treated equally. So what will happen? It will drop out from the education. So when it is drop out, let's say the child drop out from the education system, it is not only the loss for the child, but for the nation as well. Because why? When the students, we are not treated equally, they are the future for the particular nation. It will affect the inputs and also the outputs. So these are some of the examples since 1993 until 2008, some of the data, and this is the final one in 2010. I can show some of the range that is happening. And we can see the data showing that it is decreasing. Okay. And this is some of the data also, which I think I'm not going to present everything. How large are educational inequalities? So we can see day by day it is going up. Okay, day by day it is going up. So these are the data that showing that the percentage of the inequality in education is still going up in the modern world. So what will happen is all the discrimination factors, you can see here, 49% of the child will become the dropout. So what will happen if every single excellent students are coming into the dropout cases? First of all, it is a big loss for the country. Okay, why this is still happening in the modern world? Because there are some school management with the orthodox thinking. When they come out with the orthodox thinking, where they are coming out with the orthodox policy for the schools, it will give the big impact for the students. Normally, what are the things that correlated or dimensions including to the inequality? Maybe it is because of the language, geographical location, social economic status, race, and former department. Language. Globally, we can see every country or every nation, they are having their own languages. At the same time, they have introduced a second language. What will happen if the student cannot masterize the first language? The discrimination will happen. As he could not masterize the first language, so they are, it is very high chances for the students to left behind. When the student left behind, in a few years, it will cause the dropout cases, as I showed you just now, the 49%. Geographical location. Our system do not cater for everyone. We are saying that every student must get the access of the education. But what will happen when the policy is introduced nationwide? The policy just can cater some part of the geographical location. And those who are staying far and those who are not access to the current needs of education will jump into the dropout cases. What will happen if the education or the policy maker do not consider all these things? So the students will go back to the orthodox problem. How they are going to bring up the social economic status of the family when they are in the dropout cases. So we will think that some of the policy makers, of some of the policy developers, they are considering certain aspects of the students, which in the current situation, we have to look into the needs of the single aspect of the students. How can the student access to the latest technology if they are not able to access to the internet connection? We are now trying to introduce so many e-learning concepts while our students are still not access to the internet as well because of the social economic status. So these are the inequality to the education system, where some of the policymakers, we are zoomed into some of the perspective only without looking at the global perspective. Race, of course, it happens everywhere. Okay, or caste, you can say. Some of the race or some of the caste, they been ignored during the teaching and learning, which can cause dropout. All these dropout cases is happening because of the inequality of the education. That means you are not treated every single students equally. When every single students did not get the equality in education, so it is a failure towards the next future nation. Former department, maybe the former department, they have set up a few systems which is not applicable for the current system. So what I'm trying to say here is, when we look at education, it is something that beyond than that. We are not looking at the orthodox thing. What had happened? What happened in the past? But for the improvement of our nation, we must treat every student equally. So these are the aspects that I can say. Language, okay? So from the language and then former department, social economic status, geography, okay? So all these things will cause the not a stable education. So when the stable education is not provided to the children, there will be a segregation of differential physical access to the labor markets. We cannot say that, yes, it is a rules in our country, but when we look at the labor market, what are the links in future? These are the students who are going to become the expert to your nation. But when we neglect them, when we did not treat them equally in education, are they going to contribute for our future nation or labor market? Because the current students are the labor market for your in future. When the individual have access to labor market, many lack the currency skills. Okay, so when we look at all these things, what will happen in our future is, okay, all of this will give the impact to our nation. So in the current needs of education, there must be equally treated. Every student must get the access to the education. We cannot go back like 20 or 30 years back where education is only for the particular students. Yes, of course, it happened past 20, 30 years or 50 years back, but not in the current needs. Current needs. So what will happen actually is, when you look at all these things, when we look at all these particular things, it is a very high impact for the nation. Okay, so what I can say, okay, I took one of the example what is happened in South Africa, most unequal country in the world. So we are not comparing to this country, but we try to demolish the inequality in our country. Every nation must come out with the new paradigm on how you are going to make the changes towards your nation. Okay, so towards of your nation. When we think deeply on it, it is not only for our current generation. When we are thinking about the current generation and we are thinking about what happened 50 years back, yes, 50 years back, there is a need for them to segregate everything. But when you come to the current, in this era, in the paradigm shift of education, why we are treating some of the students inequality? In the classroom teaching and learning, the segregation happened where those who got the higher rank mark is not treated as well as those who got the low marks. In teaching and learning, it should not happen because we have the differentiated learning. No matter in any aspects, as I said just now, it can be in language, it can be because of the race, but when you are the classroom teacher, when you are talking about the classroom education perspective, there is no more segregation of the students. That is why some of the countries, they are making a move towards the better system where they try to treat all the students equally, and they are considering about the geographical factor. The geographical factor, especially those who are living in the rural area. How the system can work for them. How the system can cater for them. Just imagine, if this is happening in our nation, what will happen in next 20 years? Are we going to stay in the same level, or are we going back to the 50 years back? This should be a consideration. So when we are talking about education, there should be no discrimination. There should be no inequality. Every single student is your asset for your nation. They should treat it equally. They should be catered according to the needs, and not the system change the student's life, or the system change the student's paradigm in future. Okay, so I hope that within this 25 minutes I give you some important inputs regarding the education and inequality that is happening all over the world. So we are, as a system leader, we are those involving in all these policy makers, try to move beyond, try to come out with a new paradigm where how you are going to treat every students equally, and there must be a lot of conferences that you should revise the current system and try to think for the next 20 years and the needs of your country. So I think that's all, a short and brief sharing from me. If there is any question, I would like to open for the floor.
Dear participants, you can ask your questions and doubts. Thank you, sir. You have very clearly explained about the inequality what is prevailing in the society now.
Yes. Any questions? Okay, if there's no question, I would like to hand over to the chairperson of the ceremony today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. You're really have given a valuable information for the presenters and as well as for our students. It will be useful throughout our life, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Kavita ma'am, are you ready, ma'am? Dr. Kavita ma'am?
Can I have one group picture?
Sir?
Can I have one group photos? All of you can on the camera.
Yeah, sure, sir. Dear participants, kindly unmute your video, please. Kavita ma'am, please unmute your video, ma'am. Kavita ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks
Yes.
a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Can start.
Very good afternoon to one and all present here. I'm very happy to introduce the chairperson of the session, Dr. M. Kavita Ma'am, Associate Professor, Department of English, Parks College, Tripur. Being a research supervisor, she has guided 3 MPhil scholars and have been guiding 6 PhD scholars. She has presented 24 papers with various topics in national and international conferences. She had published a book entitled The English Envisage, and she has attended many seminars, conferences, workshops, symposium, and many. She has acted as a resource person in various colleges for various programs, and she has 18 years of experience in teaching, and she received Best Faculty Award for the year 2017. Ma'am, I invite you to proceed the session, ma'am. Thank you.
Most respected Chairman Sir, beloved Principal Dr. Leelavati Ma'am, and my soulmate Dr. Mahalakshmi, and other faculties of AVP College. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to chair this session. And thank you MOC team for giving a wonderful introduction about me. From the morning, it's going on successfully regarding the subaltern virtual conference. Many plenary speakers has given valuable ideas regarding inequality on childhood, regarding feminism. It's really there are no words to express their knowledge on those topics. Shall we move on with the session? I don't want to take much
Yes,
time.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who is the first participant?
First presenter, Dr. Dayagude Kahashep Donor. Are you ready, sir?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir. You can present your papers. Dr. Dayagude Kahasabik Dondiba. Are you ready, sir? Next presenter, Elizabeth Varkey.
Yes, I'm
Madam,
ready.
are you ready?
Yes, ma'am, I'm ready. Shall I
Yes,
present?
ma'am. You can please start your presentation.
Okay, I can share my screen, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. You can share.
Okay, all right. Just give me a second. Can you see my screen? Could you confirm?
Yes, ma'am, we can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, right. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone present here. And I wanted to also include this presentation because my paper is based on visual historiography. And I have taken up the topic of the Kashmir conflict because often under subaltern studies, I see that there is a lot of emphasis on, say, Dalit literature or uh, literature by women and other kinds of subalternities. But somewhere I thought it's also important to talk about an area within our country which is sometimes marginalized in many senses, and to hear some of the voices from Kashmir and the artists from Kashmir. So the title of my topic or my presentation as you can see, is the Kashmir conflict, a subaltern visual historiography. So I'll be focusing on images, on visuals, on photographs, on cartoons. And again, when we talk about visuality, there are some forms of visuality which are mainstream, which are accepted by the state, and some which are again subaltern. So in both respects, when I'm talking about the Kashmir conflict, as well as approaching it through a visual kind of perspective, both of these issues then are what you can call subaltern or marginalized. So I would like to start with just talking quickly about the objectives. I won't be reading out the paper because it would be quite long. So I'll just sort of present the main ideas that I have in my paper. So these are the major objectives. What I'm trying to do through such a kind of study is to firstly chart a subaltern visual historiography of the present conflict in Kashmir. So as we know, this conflict has been present. It's an intractable sort of conflict which has been going on for years and decades and continues even today. And resolution seems to be very distant. So that is the first objective. And secondly, what I want to do is I'm using a kind of representational visual archive, which means that it is not comprehensive. I'm still working on this, but I'll be taking some graphic narratives and some cartoons, some photographs in order to explore this whole idea or my thesis basically. And finally, what I want to do is to analyze how this visual corpus is different from our traditional modes of historicizing. So even when we talk about Kashmir, there is a particular historical timeline that we follow, which usually starts from 1947, not before that, right? So I wanted to talk about how when we're talking about different kinds of visual ways in which Kashmir is represented and subaltern ways in which it is represented, we can move away from traditional modes of historicizing, narrativizing, and archiving and look at some other ways of doing the same, which may help us to know some aspects of Kashmir history which may be different from what is usually talked about. I hope you can all hear me so far and my voice is not breaking. Do let me know if there is some issue. We have an official narrative, like I was saying, when we talk about the conflict. And this official narrative, it starts from 1947, from independence, when India received independence. And it was also the year when Maharaja Hari Singh signed the Instrument of Accession, and the entire control of J&K was transferred to India. And then over the years, there have been a lot of conflicts and struggles. I will not be going into a detailed history of that because we are all aware of it and it's all available to study. So I'll just be sharing some highlights which will be relevant to my paper. So we know that there were a series of wars or conflicts fought between India and Pakistan over this so-called disputed territory. So in 1949, in 1965, in 1971 and 99, we had series of conflicts. And then even if you look at the state of Jammu and Kashmir, there were local uprisings, there was a youth-led guerrilla revolt in the Kashmir Valley. So in the 1990s, there was a lot of instability in the region. And then there were uprisings in 2008, 2010. And this is also called as the Revolution of 2008. And also the recent conflict in 2016 with the death of Burhan Wani. This was followed by massive protests in the valley, and the security forces, they resorted to violent means like pellet guns and power shells. Pellet guns, as you know, are they usually damage the eyes and people lose eyesight. And pawa shells are shells which also have chili powder in it. So these techniques were used by the security forces, as we all know about some of the atrocities that were committed. And how has this affected the visual archive, the way in which people are visually representing Kashmir? That is what I want to sort of explore. So what happened after each of these conflicts or uprising is, for example, if we take up the 2010 uprising, once that happened, after that, there were two contradictory sets of images of the same conflict in circulation, right? So I would just want you to take a look at these two images. Can you hear me and see the images? Could someone please confirm?
Yes, we can see the images.
Okay, all right. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. Okay, so if you, right. So if you take a look at these two images, you can see how images can play a crucial role in conveying a lot of information, right, in the blink of an eye. So when we read a text, we take a lot of time reading it, but when we look at images, it happens more quickly. We try to interpret visual data, but at the same time, we need to be careful, because there can also be images that are manipulated to tell a completely different tale. So what we have in front of us are images of the 2010 uprising. So the same event, but how it has been captured differently by the national TV channels and the national newspapers, which showcase the Kashmiris as engaging in acts of violence against the state. So if you can see the image on the left, it has a gang of youth setting fire to a government vehicle, boys cornering a policeman, beating him to the ground. So these were some of the images in circulation on national TV and newspapers, or stone pelters breaking the windows of a police vehicle and all of that. And if you look at the Kashmiri media and the local newspapers like Greater Kashmir, so on the right you can see of the screen how they were telling the same story but from a different perspective, from a more empathetic perspective. So you can see in this image a father kneeling in the street mourning over his dead son's body, and other images like the body which is covered with pellet wounds, like I was talking about, the pellet shells and pavas and pellet shells that were used to attack the populace, right? So you can see the same story, how it is represented differently in these two visual narratives. So this is one example of the images that were in circulation. And a similar trend was witnessed in 2016, the event that I mentioned that we are all aware of, after the killing of the Hizbul Mujahideen leader Burhan Wani. So there were again images in circulation. One side again represented the Kashmiris as purely perpetrators rather than victims, where the other side presented them as purely voiceless victims without having done anything wrong. So both of these are problematic. Both of these representations are extreme and problematic. So there were group of emerging generation of artists from Kashmir, like I said, cartoonists, photographers, visual narrators, visual novelists, a graphic novelist. They were frustrated with these reductive representations of Kashmir that actually failed to grasp the nuances of the conflict. So these artists, cartoonists, photographers, graphic novelists, they took up on themselves to try and capture these traumatic experiences, keep alive memories, and record this lived history, this experienced history, and be actively involved in the creation of narratives, and through that, the preservation of their culture. So these young cartoonists, so I'll be taking you through the works of a few cartoonists and how they're representing the crisis or the conflict in Kashmir, and how it is different from the other visual narratives that are in circulation. So the first artist I would like you to look upon is I think you can see it on the screen. So this is actually, it's a digitally altered poster of the 1964 Bollywood blockbuster Kashmir Ki Kali, right? So a movie where the title itself is talking about the beauty of Kashmir, and of course the stereotypical associations of beauty with femininity and this region that we usually praise for its beauty. So whenever you think of Kashmir, you of course think of conflict, but we also think of the Dal Lake and all the beautiful sites. It's called the mini Switzerland. So we think of the beauty of Kashmir. So this was a particular movie any Bollywood enthusiast would know if you've been following Bollywood, although this is quite an old movie. So this was a 1964 poster, and this has been digitally altered by Mir Suhail. Now, Mir Suhail, as you can see in the note here, he's a 28-year-old cartoonist from the valley, from Kashmir. And what he does is he tries to combine incongruous or images which don't go together. He tries to combine them, and his objective is to make the viewers, or you could say readers of the visual text, think about what they're looking at, right? So today this image has become so popular that if you were to just Google Kashmir Ki Kali, the film poster, this would also appear, right? So you can see this heroine here, played by Sharmila Tagore in the movie. She has pellet wounds in her eyes, and that has been represented. So the beauty of Kashmir here is juxtaposed with something totally incongruous, which is the violence. So it's strange how when we think of Kashmir, both these things actually come to mind. And the viewers, when they see such an image, they will be, of course, encouraged to think about what is really happening, about the violence, which is yoked together with the beauty too. So this is one work by Mir Suhail. And he's also many interesting visual experiments, you could say, that he has brought about. As you can see in this next slide, okay, what he has also done, and you can find his work, his portfolio is available online. And I've just here, there are just some images from his portfolio. So what he has done is, you can see on your left, I'm sure you all know, this is the picture of Mona Lisa, or the painting of Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. And it has been, again, he has reworked it. And not only this painting, if you go through his portfolio, his many other famous paintings, Western paintings, like Johannes Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring, or Edward Munch's The Scream, which is again a very well-known Western painting. All of these paintings, he has taken it up and he has reworked them. So again, you can see these pellet wound injuries. And also on the right, I think you can see the image of Gandhi here. So he also took upon images of freedom fighters, of revolutionaries, and represented them bandaged and with these pellet wounds. So the message that he's trying to convey is both to a national and an international audience by using these visual images, which people are actually aware of already, but he's trying to rework them. So it creates a sense of alienation, and the viewer begins to rethink these images in a new light, and also think about where we are headed as a country, as a nation, and these ideals of democracy, etc. Viewers are encouraged to think about all of these issues. So the aim here then is to reach out to a larger audience, to show the world, okay, so Gandhiji is again a figure that is well known to us as a nation, as well as to everybody, right, in the world, as well as these paintings. So anyone who is interested in art and painting would know about these very famous paintings from the West. And what he tries to do is, through all of this, he's trying to, like I said, create a sense of alienation and make the viewers think about what is happening in Kashmir. Okay, and some of these images are quite disturbing. For example, there is a digitally altered tourist poster. Okay, I'm sorry if this hurts some of your sentiments, but so there is this tourist poster, which is, of course, talking about Kashmir as the most beautiful place on earth, right? If there is a beautiful heaven on earth, it is here, as it's said about Kashmir. And so he's taking again this poster, which is something very common. All of this in the background, you can see the hills and the trees. All of these are the typical ways in which Kashmir is depicted, the postcard image. But he reworks it by bringing here this lacerated body, right? This body which has been striped and probably some kind of violence, state violence. And he sets this against this backdrop of lush greenery that we are well versed with. Okay, this is the idea of Kashmir that we are familiar with, and the idea of Kashmir that we are not so familiar with, or we know, but not so visually, right? It's not entered mainstream visual archive or history. So this is what he's trying to do, and presenting this tourist poster, but reworking it. So what he's trying to do, basically, Mir Suhail and other cartoonists of his generation, they're working within the existing visual framework of Kashmir. So this framework, which is already available to us, of a beautiful tourist-friendly Kashmir. And then he is sort of making us question these images, right? And as I would like to borrow a term from Nicholas Mirzoeff, he's someone who writes about visuality, and he uses this term counter visuality. So in his book, The Right to Look, Nicholas Mirzoeff writes that in order to match and overcome the complex of visuality, the need of the hour is counter visuality. So basically he says that there are a lot of images in circulation today, but we must be careful viewers or readers of the images and not accept everything. So this is one example of counter visuality. So the image of Kashmir, which is well known to us, juxtaposed with a not so pretty picture of Kashmir, right? And again, so there are many such images and cartoons too. So this is one example of a cartoon by the same artist. He's trying to depict normalcy, or basically question normalcy, through this image of a man with his lips sewn together, right? So again, through this simple image, it's just a man with his lips sewn together, but you can see the powerful impact that his image has. So without many words, okay, just one word that is also part of the artwork, which is normalcy. He's conveying a lot, right? So I'm sure, like if we open this up for discussion, there'll be a lot of interpretations of this particular image. So, and there are many other images, cartoons, which were also criticized. They became controversial. For example, one based on Afzal Guru's hanging. It was taken down from the social media platform, saying from Facebook, he had shared it on Facebook, his cartoon, and it was taken down saying that it does not follow the Facebook community standards. So I could not really find that image. I could only read up about it. So this censorship, you can see, of visual dissent in an era where there is so much of visuality around us, it highlights the threat that visuals continue to pose in our world, right? So visuals, powerful visuals have an effect, cartoons have an effect. And when people try to ban these images, that the power of these images is further highlighted. There is one more cartoonist that I would like to touch upon, just to give you a representative representation from different artists. So this artist's name is Suhail Naqshbandi, and he is someone who is a cartoonist for Greater Kashmir. And you can see in this particular cartoon, which is titled The Unpalatable Truth. So the pun here is intended, the pellet that it is referring to. And again, you can see these little children who are blinded by the pellets. And you can see the ex-JNK CM who is leading them to a dark future. So basically, the political leaders are being criticized through the cartoons. And of course, this is a quite a long history or tradition of caricaturing, of political cartooning that is being employed here. Again, this is another cartoon by the same artist, where it is showing how politicians are busy blame gaming, right, or putting the blame on the other person rather than changing the situation. So when one person is in power in 2010, he's being blamed by the other political party and politicians, and vice versa. So this is going on, this blame game, and the people, the local people are the ones who are actually suffering. So these were some of the cartoons, and like I said, some posters which are altered, some film posters. So a lot of work is being done in this realm of visuality. I would like to talk about one last work, right, which will also give us an introduction into another genre altogether, which is that of the graphic novels. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of graphic novels, but you may not have heard of this particular graphic novel, which is Munnu. It was published in 2016, and the subtitle is A Boy from Kashmir. So basically, this is a story narrated by a 7-year-old boy. And of course, we follow him as he comes of age. He becomes a teenager and an adult, and he begins to work as a cartoonist for a newspaper. So it's partly autobiographical, and it is following the journey of this family of mother, father, and there are 3 children, right? And through this depiction, what he tries to do is again talk about daily life in the valley, right? So this is one of the first graphic novels from emerging from Kashmir, and it's in the tradition of graphic novelists worldwide. Like you must have heard of Joe Sacco, who has written the famous graphic novel Palestine, or even of Art Spiegelman, who wrote the graphic novel Maus, okay, Maus. So Maus was basically talked about the Holocaust, okay, the Jewish Holocaust, and the trials faced by people during that time. And what Art Spiegelman had done in that classic graphic novel, he had represented human beings as animalistic creatures, right? And in that same tradition, Malik Sajjad from Kashmir, he also tries to represent these people as basically, this is a deer which is becoming extinct it's endangered right now in the valley in Kashmir. And he's basically trying to draw that contrast between how people here are themselves in danger, just like the Hangul deer is in danger of being extinct. People here are in danger in their own homeland. So this is how he depicts the family. And there are many panels which there's really not trying to dive into, but just to give you an idea of what the graphic novel talks about. So here we have Munnu. Munnu is the protagonist of the graphic novel, and he is very good at sketching. Like I told you, he goes on to become a cartoonist, and his classmates want him to sketch AK-47 rifles for them, right? And he's so fed up of sketching for each of them. So he creates a rubber stamp with his eraser. He tries to create a kind of stamp, so he does not have to draw from all of them. So it's humorous, but at the same time, it's a brilliant comment on the proliferation of arms in the region, right? And how India is becoming one of the largest uh, importers of arms, right? And the global part of the global arms trade. So it's a comment on that. This is another panel from the novel, which is talking about the condition of women in the valley who are constantly suffering, constantly waiting for their husbands, for their sons to come back home because there are curfews and sometimes they are shot dead on the streets. And there are a group of women who are called half widows because they don't know where their husbands are. They have basically disappeared. So it talks also about the condition of women in the valley. And then there are other panels which are talking about the kind of
Ma'am,
violence which
excuse
is.
me. Excuse me,
Yes,
please
yes.
kindly make it short, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. I'll just wrap up. So
Yes.
I just wanted to let you take a look at these panels, and maybe you'll be interested to take it up yourself. There's a lot here to discuss. So I will quickly conclude. What I wanted to do through this paper is talk about how the work of these cartoonists is providing a subaltern history, which is sourced from common people and sometimes the direct victims of violence and injustice. For example, the story of Bunnu, which is, like I said, partly autobiographical. And these artists, these cartoonists and these graphic novelists, you could call them critical insiders. It's a phrase that Anantamurthy used, right, to talk about people who are part of the state, and but yet they are able to critically look at things, events that are happening there, right? And also what I wanted to do is to talk about the role of the reader or viewer, because we are talking about visual archives and visual historiography. So when we look at these images, we should not just blindly consume these images and become insensitive to them, but we also have a duty to see. So seeing would involve carefully thinking about these images, not just blindly looking at them. And lastly, what I wanted to talk about is the ways in which we become aware of a visual regime which is in place. Okay, so what are the kinds of images that are circulated, which are the ones that are banned? All of that is constantly being controlled because images have a power. Some are allowed to circulate, others are suppressed and erased, right? And so all of the visual material that we come across, we should look at it with a critical eye. So I've come to the end of my paper. Sorry for taking a little extra time. And these are some of the references. If there are some questions, whether now or later, we can take it.
Elizabeth, good afternoon.
Yes, good
Elizabeth,
afternoon. Yes, good afternoon.
it's really wonderful to hear your non-stop explanation. And it's really a modern idea. It's really a modern idea depicting Kashmiri situations in which is in subaltern conflict nowadays. Have you visited Kashmir?
Yes, ma'am, I have. But
Oh,
yeah, more to appreciate the beauty. Thankfully, not caught in any conflict here.
you have given only the conflicts that occur in Kashmir. Why can't you suggest some beauties that are
Yeah,
subaltern with
because
other states of India?
yeah, yeah, beauty is never subaltern, right? So beauty is always accepted. So that's why I wanted to
Maybe
talk about.
subaltern to the other states of India. Subaltern to the other states of India.
I'm sorry if you feel that way. Just I thought this topic needs to be brought under subaltern studies. So that's why I looked it
Okay,
up.
it is also okay. It's also a serious thing that even the children are mostly concentrate only on AK-47 caricatures, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's what. Yeah, true, ma'am.
It's
So the
really
impact of, yeah, impact on the
it's
young
really a
minds.
sensible thing, ma'am. I haven't visualized this kind of things from the children of Kashmiri people. And have you now the now Prime Minister Modi has given an independent state rights to the people? No,
Hmm.
what do you feel about the current situation of Kashmiri people? All
I
you
mean,
have depicted is about in 1960s and 1990s, isn't it? What about the 21st century
yeah, yeah. I mean,
living condition of
yeah,
Kashmiri
that is the
people?
limitation of the paper itself. And I'm building on it, ma'am. So, like the recent developments, I will be like adding to it. So, this is a work in progress, like I said, but I just wanted to share these ideas.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I loved it a lot. Thank you so much. for
Thank you,
giving a
ma'am.
different perspective of Kashmir, the subaltern studies. Thank you.